So is any problems? Yeah. इसको पूरा डिलीट कर दीजिएगा. नहीं नहीं बहुत सारे पेजेस है पूरे स्लाइड को. So any problem you have? Complete. No, but other slide है ना, पूरा स्लाइड ही खत्म कर दीजिए आप. बहुत सारे slides हैं. Spice. चलिए ठीक है. Okay dear. Okay. You are asking what is the plan and non-plan expenditure. Plan expenditure means the expenditure government is doing as per the plan made. Okay. So that expenditure is known as the plan expenditure. Other than plan, the amount you are spending, these come under the non-plan expenditure. But government basically just now they are not bifurcating on the basis of plan and non-plan expenditure. 2017-18 budget, you can see that. So that onwards, that budget and onwards, now government is only differentiating and dividing the expenditure on the basis of plan expenditure, on the basis of capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. Clear? Just check. Clear here? So I was discussing this flow chart and just see this flow chart. Then what is the impact? So till yesterday we have seen that the overall deficit, I'm just reviewing these things. Overall deficit of government is fiscal deficit. Yeah. The fiscal deficit represents overall deficit of the government. Okay. A revenue deficit represents the deficit is there, and that is due to the revenue expenditure and revenue receipt. So if there is a revenue deficit, it simply means that government is not able to meet the current consumption expenditure from their own resources. Yeah. Effective revenue deficits from the revenue deficit, if you're subtracting the other part, what is that? The grants given for creation of capital formation, if that much amount you deduct it, then RD is going to convert into the ERD. Fine. Last one is the PT, primary deficit. Primary deficit, how you're getting? A fiscal deficit minus interest payments, means how much interest you paid, okay, in the particular fiscal year. And when you take total expenditure, then total expenditure, this interest payment is also part of that. So if it is the total expenditure incurred by the government and total receipts excluding the borrowing, if you take, then you are getting the fiscal deficit. So out of the total expenditure what you made in a particular fiscal year, the how much you spend on interest, if that much amount you deduct from fiscal deficit, the remaining amount will give you the primary deficit. And primary deficit represents a deficit due to the current fiscal policy of the government. Primary deficit represents a deficit due to the current fiscal policy. Okay, because interest you are paying this year basically on the loan or public debt created till the last fiscal year, and the public debt till last fiscal year is the outcome of previous fiscal policies. Okay, and due to on that you are paying interest rate. So interest rate is the outcome of previous fiscal policies. So if you subtract the interest rate amount, okay, then it's going to give you the deficit due to the current fiscal year. Okay, second question then we are coming after that. Okay, how can you fund it? How can you fund it? What are the ways to fund? So I have discussed with you that there are two ways to fund the government expenditure or government funding their deficit from two different ways. One is the borrowings from the RBI, and second is the borrowings from market. So yesterday we have discussed what is the impact of borrowing from market. So we have discussed if government is borrowing more and more fund from the market, then less fund left for the private sector in the market, because one is the government, second is the privates. These two are borrowing from the market. So if government borrows more amount, then funds left for the private sector will be less, and that's going to create the excess demand for fund in the loan market or in banking system. And if there is excess demand for the fund, lending rate is going up, and which is going to decrease your private investment. So then it is known as a crowding out effect. We termed it as the crowding out effect. Clear? I made you the flow chart, and if you reverse it, like government is borrowing relatively less amount, then more funds are available for the private parties. So lending rate will be low, and private investments will go up. That is known as a crowding in effect. Clear? Now, second way of funding is we are going to discuss today is the borrowings from RBI. Clear? So you have to link, if this type of funding is there, how this fund is going to create the overall impact in the country. Okay, just check here. If there is a higher fiscal deficit and government borrowings from RBI, because here the government is funding after borrowings money from the RBI. So there is more borrowings from the RBI. And if there is a more borrowings from the RBI, then ultimately in the economy there is an increase in money supply. And if money supply increasing more in the country, then it is going to create again inflation. Getting your other part, there is a higher inflation. If higher inflation is there, so there's two different impacts we can see in the country. One within the economy, that is the domestic economy we are referring here. Domestic economy like fall in real income, fall in saving, fall in consumptions, okay, fall in investments. Overall again the fall in aggregate demand, output, employment. These all are going to happen. In external sector we are saying that sector like it's India and the relation with the other nations, that we are seeing as external sector. So if you take the external sector, then one thing is going to happen. Your exports is going to decrease due to higher inflation, and imports is going to increase, okay, due to inflations. Why? Because simple reason, you understand it here. Let us consider. Let's consider, you take the economy like this, and here is any foreigner. We are assuming, suppose it's foreigner. Fauna, let us differentiate. The hairstyle like this, fauners. So this is the fauna and the normal style is the domestic one. Suppose this fauner is coming with $1 and suppose exchange rate is going on say 60 rupees. Suppose 60 rupees and price level is now rupees 10. Price rupees 10. So as I discussed with you, okay, when we are going to relate between the two variables, we have to assume other things remaining same. Just follow this. Suppose exchange rate $1 equal to 6 rupees remain. It's now 82 rupees around is going on. Okay, but for simplification, we are taking the normal value where you can easily connect it. $1 equal to 6 rupees suppose is going on in the market and price level is the rupees 10. Price level means it is the average price of all goods and services. Rupees 10. So if this foreigner is coming in India, how many goods and services they can buy? They can buy 6 units. They can buy 6 units. Clear? So foreigners will always compare in terms of dollar. In terms of dollar. So now they can see that from $1 they are buying the 6 units. From $1 they are buying the 6 units. If suppose price level increase from rupees 10 to rupees 20, 10 to rupees 20. The moment the price level increase from 10 to 20, rupees 10 to 20, it means there is inflations and higher inflations, because remember in the class I have discussed, inflation is the means of production. Inflation is the means of production. Sorry, excuse me, sorry. Inflation I just discussed. Inflation is the process of, that is a capital definition. Inflation is a process of increase in price level that we discussed. Inflation is what? Inflation is a process of increase in price level. So just see here, price level was 10 and now it's not 20. So the process of, there is an increase in price level, and increase in price level means there is inflation. But due to higher inflations, you can see the same persons from this amount, now they are able to buy, how much they can buy? They can buy only 3 units. 3 units. And foreigners will now compare with the $1. So earlier they were buying 6 units, now they are able to buy the 3 units. So why? Because due to inflation in the domestic economy. Inflation in the domestic economy. So what they will do, the foreigners simply they will cut down their demand, and their demand is our exports. So the exports is going to decrease. Exports are going to decrease. This thing is going to happen due to this reason. Now, second, you understand that we are here, we are here, we are here. Okay. We have an option to demand imported goods, and other we have demand the domestic goods, Clear? So if suppose there is a inflation is going on, if there is a higher inflation, then domestic goods for us becomes more expensive. So as a resident consumer, what we will do, or we are going to do, we can shift it from domestic goods to the imported goods. We are shifting here. So ultimately demand for imported goods will go up. So finally imports of the country is going to increase. Simple logic. Okay. So if there is inflation in the domestic economy, so for us, for domestic consumers and producers, we prefer to shift from domestic to imported goods. So imports is going to increase, and for the foreigners, earlier they were demanding more output, not due to inflations or expensive of the domestic goods. Now they will demand less domestic goods. So export is going to decrease and imports is going to increase. That's you can see. Exports is increasing and imports is going to decrease or going to increase. Okay. Now, I have discussed with you BOP1, BOP or not, then you just get one name. Balance of payment is a, I will discuss you in the external sector. Well, maybe after a few topics I am going to external sectors. Remember, balance of payment is a systematic record of all economic transactions between the home country and rest of the world during a given period of time. suppose I am domestic economy, you all are the rest of the world. So economic transaction is going on between me and you. So all the transaction I'm going to record very systematic way, and that record we are saying it's the BOP, systematic record. So BOP is basically divided into two different accounts. One is known as the current account and one is known as the capital account. Clear? So either you take current account or your capital account. For understanding at this level, for me, just you assume like this. Basically all account they are having the two transaction. Either we are receiving the foreign currency or we are paying the foreign currency. It means either there is an inflow of foreign currency or there is an outflow of foreign currency. Take the example in current account, suppose exports of goods and services. So the moment you are exporting goods and services but you are receiving the foreign currency. So one is what? We are receiving the foreign currency. But if you are importing goods and services from other countries, it means you are paying the foreign currency. So there is an outflow of foreign currency. So current account related to what? Only the one things. There is an inflow of foreign currency and outflow of foreign currency. Similar transaction is going on in the capital account. But yes, for the different purpose. Like I borrowed from any other country, the inflow of foreign currency, and I'm giving loan to other country, there is an outflow of foreign currency. Again, there is this one. Suppose FDI is coming in India, so we are receiving the foreign currency. And some our domestic investors, if they are investing abroad, so foreign currency is going abroad. Outflow. So here we are saying current account. And current account measure, not the all I am telling you. Major transaction is the exports of goods and services and imports of goods and services. Clear? So exports means what? Exports means inflow of foreign currency. Because if I am going to export in any country, means I produce goods and services in India, but I am selling it to any other nations. If I sell to any other nations, then definitely I am receiving the foreign currency. So exports means inflow of foreign currency. So more exports means more inflow of foreign currency. Imports is what? Import means I am buying goods and services from other countries. If I'm buying goods and services from other countries, it means I pay the rupee, I pay the dollar, basically in foreign currency, all international transactions in the foreign currency. So I pay the foreign currency. So there is a imports of goods and services means outflow of foreign currency. Exports of goods and services means inflow of foreign currency. Clear? So when export is started decreasing, means inflow of foreign currency is started decreasing. Imports increasing means the outflow started increasing. And if outflow of foreign currency is more than inflow of foreign currency, so we are facing the current account deficit. So in the word we are writing CAD, CAD. CAD means current account deficit. This here is clear. Current account deficit. CAD means current account deficit. Current account deficit, CAD. Clear? So current account deficit is going up. It's going to happen. And what we are facing right now? Clear. Since current account and capital account commonly known as the BOP, if let us consider capital account is there, but if your current account keeps going in deficit and deficit much larger volume, so ultimate your BOP is going to be in deficit. BOP is going in deficit. And BOP deficit keeps increasing. Balance of payments in deficit keeps increasing. So if balance of payment is a deficit and you have in reserve the foreign currency, then you can pay. Because payment is more than the received, so you have to pay from your reserve. So forex reserve is going to decrease. And BOP deficit to BOP crisis, yes, crisis means deficit means and crisis and deficit means it may be possible you are in deficit, but you have reserve, so you can pay from your reserve. So till that time you can say you are in deficit, but you are not the crisis because you have enough reserve. But suppose you are in deficit, but even you don't have in reserve that foreign currency, then we can say you are in the crisis. And the same situation we faced in 1991, and that is the BOP crisis. because we had forex reserve, foreign currency reserve. It was very limited, very limited. Even it was not enough to pay even 2 weeks of import bills. That was the situation. Even 2 weeks of import bills, we were not in a position to pay. And that was the reason we approached to the IMF. Because I discussed with you or not, then you can just get it. The Bretton Woods Conference constituted, basically in Bretton Woods, the two international institutions constituted. One is known as IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which is known as the World Bank. So IBRD job was designed to help the member countries if the member country is facing the problem of development. Okay, at the same time, one more institution was constituted, which is known as the IMF, International Monetary Fund. So IMF main job assigned that if any member country facing any BOP problem, then IMF will help. Okay, and that is the reason when we faced crisis in 1991, we approached to the IMF. Sri Lanka is facing the BOP problem now. Sri Lanka is approaching to the IMF, and even this to some extent Bangladesh is facing, so Bangladesh also approached to the IMF. So that is the condition, and this is the things. So when you go and see that 1991 BOP crisis in India and find out what are the reasons behind it, then one of the reason was higher fiscal deficit. So that time we were saying the budgetary deficit. I will tell you what is the difference between the budgetary deficit and fiscal deficit after this. So budgetary fiscal deficit is the new definitions that we accepted in place of budgetary deficits in 1997. So in 1997, you take that period and onwards, we are using in India the fiscal deficit concept. We are not using now budgetary deficit. But 1997 and this adoption of fiscal deficit, before that, we are using the budget deficits. So you can refer to budget deficit that time. Okay. See, this way it's affected. Clear? Now, if you are see this, please, I request you, all of you, please put few lines in your own language, the way we have explained this diagram, and always keep in your mind when you're going for the discussions, because this way basically it is going to happen. It is happening in the country. So if you take the Greece economy crisis, read somewhere sometimes, then you are getting the Greece economy also when it started the higher fiscal deficit and landed up to the balance from payment crisis. Take the Sri Lankan economy. Recently you read any article, then you will get it. Sri Lankan economy, firstly, they were huge government expenditure, limited receipts it was there. The government faced the higher fiscal deficit. They borrowed from the central bank, funded this deficit, and finally they land up to the BOP crisis. Okay, it's a recent example. You can just check these things. Clear? देखो यहाँ तक clear है dear? Check all of you. So all the step you write the 1-2 lines, so then you can connect it. If any point anywhere you're not getting, you can tell me. Yes, dear. So you send me some topic, some questions here. Yeah, Partha, these two are the same concept. I will tell you these all words. I will clear your all concept like deficit financing, monetized deficit, budgetary deficits. Okay, so and other related terms what you are using in this, I will discuss with you. But here you understand this point. Till here is clear. Okay, please tell about the capital account also. No, dear. As I requested you, okay, this account, this BOP, I will discuss you in the external sector. Okay, you understand the till now. I think you are getting the way I am just discussing your topics. I only discuss that much of things that you need to understand the particular this flow chart, and whatever the minimum things what you need to understand, that part I discussed. But complete BOP that I will discuss in the external sector, because when you start external sector discussion, the who can complete this topic here? Okay, and we have to complete first this topic, all the fiscal system, then we are going to the external sector. So you have to wait. In this way we are moving it, and already I moved in the same way. So wait till the topic it's we are going to discuss. Just even current account, I am not discuss everything. I am not discuss the balance of trade. I am not discuss about the invisibles account. Detail I will discuss in the external sector. I only given you that much information which is going to help you to understand this flow chart. Is it clear or not? Clear. Now, so what you're getting, if I'm asking you, so as there is higher FD to higher FD, so government borrowing money from the RBI. As money supply will increase, people will consume more or use goods and services more. So government can get more taxes to minimize the FD. That is the thing, sir. See, I'm not denying the what you are written. It may be possible, but you understand the situations. Here, government already is spent in the market. Already demand is created. You understand? Already demand created, because you are just funding the gap between expenditure and the receipts. So how much demand is going to create already created. Now you need to fund it. Take care. So even you are funding, it's going to the government, but the problem is that your economy is in that position not to produce and meet the aggregate demand. That you have to think about it. Since government already spend the money, spending only, suppose you are knowing if you are working in the government sector, so first you have to do the work, later you are getting the payment. Most of the times it is the process. So whatever amount of consumption demand is already created, in hoping that I will get the money. Against that already you done it. Okay. So what you are trying to say, if suppose that is the one thing. Second, you can say that if a government keeps funding, suppose continuously they are doing that. Government, suppose in the next 2 months they got it, we are not meeting, they borrowed from the RBI, they are buying this, doing these things. True, it is going to increase, multiplier effects will be there. I am accepting this, what you are trying to say. It is also true, multiplier effects will work and this money is going to increase consumption and these other things. But you understand here, if you inject the money use, it does not mean it is going to create the aggregate output, employment, other things. Because that is the reason I am telling you here. Because when I was the honors student, when I was just learned this line, yes, if you increase the money supply, lending rate will decrease, investment will go up, aggregate demand will go up, output will go up, employment will go up. So that day I was thinking, what the finance minister is doing, what the prime minister is doing, what the chief minister is doing, let them to increase the money supply more and more. Even without studying, without completing the graduation, we can get the job. That was the things. But after doing the whole course and then we are masters, MPhil, PhD, then I realized it. Even the after graduation, I realized it. Not only after graduation, even the after few class, when sir connected, no, It is not the only way economy can work. There is other way around. Economy may work in this way. If increase in aggregate demand, fine. But suppose increase in aggregate demand is not going to increase the output. Why? Because there is a possibility that aggregate demand has increased in the economy, but economy is not in a position to increase production. Then what will happen? There will be excess demand, and that excess demand leads to higher inflation. And if inflation there, this will work. You understand these things. If the positive part, what you are suggesting, if it's there, it's really very good, but always it is not true. Okay. That way, you have to think here. Are exports the only way to maintain the forex reserve, or are there any alternatives? See, again, you are just putting me in the different way. Same question you are asking. Dear, I connected one of the way, exports. But if exports is the major part, you understand it. Major part. And at the same time, your import is going up. So outflow is going to increase. Inflow is going to decrease. So ultimate, what is happening? Ultimate, what is happening? The reserve is going to decrease. Why? Because you are facing the higher deficit, higher fiscal deficit. I connected from the one side. Today, if capital account of India is in positive, मैं नहीं जाना चाह रहा था, but since you are asking these things, capital account in India is surplus due to what? Due to your FDI, due to your foreign capital. But how long you can expect we can get the foreign capital? And the day you are talking about, that time foreign capital was not allowed. This foreign capital you started allowing after 1991 when you reform your economy. So that was not possible what you are thinking today. So the contribution from that, it was not that much what you are getting today. You understand the situation in 1991. So mainly it was export and import. Remittances was there, but again it's very restricted one. Today, if you are comparing today with the 1991, there is some difference. You understand this. So measure your current account depending on exports of goods and services and imports of goods and services. Okay. Remittances is also their current account. Income receipt from abroad and paid to abroad, it is part of that. Transfers is part of that. So that's the reason. You wait, I will complete it. So as I requested you, dear, please let me go this way. I promise you, you are getting each and every information. All topics we are going to connect in your class, which are relevant to you. But please wait till that, because the way going to that topic means I'm just diverting myself from here. But it is also very necessary to discuss some topics to convince you how it's working, because it's a very necessary one to connect it. And if you are not connecting, it's not possible to understand a particular topic. Clear? Now, thank you to writing, got it, sir. Clear? Now you compare, dear. Now you compare which one is good way of deficit. Deficit, you mean not deficit means which are the good ways to fund your deficit. One is the market borrowings, and one is the borrowing from the RBI. Borrowing from the RBI. So later we will see that in the FRBM Act, what are the conditions. Ultimately, higher fiscal deficit is going to adversely affect the economy. That's final result. If there is a higher fiscal deficit, it is going to adversely affect the economy. Yeah, it's going to affect the economy adversely. If it is a market borrowing, so it is going to create the crowding out effect. And if it is the borrowing from the central bank, it is going to affect the whole round in this way. Domestic economy, external sector, export imports, current account, the macroeconomic variables is going to affect. So as far as adverse impact is concerned, in these two, which one is preferred one? So you can say market borrowings. Yeah, market borrowings. So you can see from last several years, the government relying on the market borrowings and short-term borrowings. Short-term borrowings only they are doing from the RBI. Long-term borrowings now it's not allowed. I will discuss you right now. Okay, short-term borrowings they are doing from the RBI, long-term not. Okay, but now mainly they are depending on the market borrowings. Why? Because if there is a market borrowings, they are going where government is maintaining the deficit, then what will maximum it will happen? The crowding out effect. And if crowding out effect means the private investment is going to decrease due to the increase in lending rate. So particularly for invest, if you want, suppose it's happened and you want to go, you also want to increase and encourage the investments, there is a possibility. You can give incentive to the investors, give subsidy to the investors. Yes, I'm giving you 2% subsidy on interest rate. You borrow at the low rate of interest, go for investments, that you can manage it. So where it's damaging your economy, you have an option to control it. But here, all round it is going to affect your country. So to what extent you are going to manage it, this is another question. So that is the reason that FRBM Act, there is a provisions for long term, 1st April 2006 this provision is there. For long term, in normal conditions, RBI cannot borrow from the, government cannot borrow from the RBI, and RBI cannot print new currency for funding to the government deficit. Funding to the deficit, that is for long term. And you cannot borrow from for long term. But short term management, managing your liquidity for the deficit for short term, that is allowed. In short term, you can just borrow it. Clear? So overall, we can say that higher fiscal deficit is not good for the country, or higher deficits are not good for the country. So you have to bring the economy. You have to say to the government should achieve the low level of fiscal deficit. But who can put how the government can do that? So government, for that reason, in 2002, in Parliament, one bill was introduced, which is known as the FRBM bill, which is which is passed in 2003, which is known as the FRBM Act. So FRBM Act, it is a Parliament Act, and now it's putting a binding constraint to the government. Not only to the present government, but also for the future government, you have to follow the fiscal consolidation path or policy and manage the low level of fiscal deficit. So now after this, there is a relevance of FRBM Act, clear? Because you first know that how higher fiscal deficit is going to affect the overall country, okay, then only you can understand the relevance of the law or the act, what we can say FRBM Act. So to control it, the government implemented fiscal responsibility and budgetary management, or budget management, internet, budget management, budget management, Budget Management Act 2003. Short form, you can just write FRBM Act 2003. Clear? Now you write here. Please write. FRBM became an act in 2003. FRBM became an act in 2003. Okay. Let's stop right. The government of India notified FRBM rules in July 2004. The government of India notified FRBM rules in July 2004 to specify to specify the annual reduction targets. The Government of India notified FRBM rules in July 2004 to specify the annual reduction targets for fiscal indicators. Okay, what are the fiscal indicators? So like fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, ERD, PD, primary deficit, these all are known as the fiscal indicators or fiscal parameters. So if you are knowing now, you have the concept, so just seeing the value of all these indicators, you can estimate that what is the fiscal condition of the government. Okay, that you can say that just right now. The objective of the act is to ensure intergenerational equity, in fiscal management, long run macroeconomic stability, better coordination between fiscal and monetary policy, and transparency in fiscal operation of the government. Okay, it is your basically your introductions. So I think all of the words are simple one. Intergenerational equity. Okay, intergenerational equity means parity you are bringing. So take two generations, this generation and future generation you take. Suppose today you take RD, revenue deficits. So FRBM Act, already I discussed FRBM Act saying that fiscal deficit may be 3%. I mean, it's a minimum. Okay, a maximum should be 3% and RD it should be 0. That is the target. If suppose you achieving that, so it's good for the present generations and future generation both. Why? Because present generation is consuming out of their own resources, and then future generation, if you establish, and the future generation will consume from their own resources. If RD is not 0, RD is say 3%, 4% like this, it means you are consuming but your consumption is funded through borrowings, and this borrowed amount liabilities you are shifting to the future generations. So it means you consume today, but bill of your consumptions is going to be paid by the future generations, which is not good. So intergenerational equity means you consume your resources, let them consume their own resources. Why? Your consumption bill, the new generation, the coming generation or future generation is going to pay. Okay, that is the concept of intergenerational equity. Yes, you can answer then why 3% FD? Yesterday I discussed. If RD is 0, then fiscal deficit is 3%. So that is due to the capital expenditure. So if due to asset creation or capital expenditure, if I borrowed and I am deficit of 3%, but 3% deficit is due to what? Due to the capital creation of capital assets. If it is so, but that capital I am going to hand over you in the future. That capital I am going to hand over to the future generations. So that capital or asset I am going to hand over. So it's good. Yes, even I borrow it, fine. But I'm giving you some part of liability to you, but I'm also handing over the assets and the capital, which I formed from this money. So that is the logic behind it, and that is the ultimate aim, is the intergenerational equity, coordination between fiscal and monetary authority, transparency in the whole fiscal system. Don't take FRBM Act just like the act to control the fiscal deficit. No dear, FRBM Act, so many changes they made it in the whole fiscal policy, and they brought transparency in the system. Okay, that we are going to discuss in the one by one the salient features, and everything you please connect it, because today what is the requirement, that is a transparency, and the everything should be very transparent and go very smoothly. Okay, right. Right, salient features of FRBM Act. Right, salient features of FRBM Act. I think. Yeah, one questions you have sent. First of all, do you know about the SWIFT? Just give me 1-2 lines, then I can relate it. Just send me 1-2 lines, then I will just relate it. Okay. Otherwise, first you just focus this topic, then you can go to that topic, because again it's going to related to international transactions. Just write it SWIFT, 1-2 lines, I will just let you. Right, salient features of FRBM Act. First you write, first point, reduction of fiscal deficit. Reduction of fiscal deficit to 3% TO2 to 3% of the GDP. 3% of the GDP by 2008-9. By 2008-9. Okay, it's not the very old one. You understand the sequencing, because always I prefer you develop your concept in very sequencing way for this exam, because they are asking current, but always your answer must be connected with the previous one, the last, because trending question they are asking, so you should know. So FRBM basically enacted, presented in Parliament in 2002, enacted in the Parliament in 2003, and notified in 2004, implemented 2004. So initially target year was 2008 and 9. This was the target year. Okay, the targets which are given, that we will achieve it in 2008 and 9. But India was about to reach that target, true. But in 2008, the whole world faced the worldwide recession, which is known as the Great Recessions. So Great Recessions, basically under that impact, it was not possible to achieve the targets. So again 2008 onwards, it is a diverting period. I mean, deviated, the government deviated. And it was not possible that time to achieve the targets. Why? Because the requirement had changed, priority had changed. And again 2011, the Eurozone crisis. After that, the whole world started recovering, but again there is impact was there. So it was not possible. We were about to again, it's approximately 4.5 was the target, but after that we reached to the 4.5 target around. But again the pandemic has happened. Due to pandemic, again the deviation is much more. So economy, keeps going in very fluctuated manner. And we have to adjust everything under the same circumstances. Sometimes we are approaching towards achieving the growth. Again we are deviating. Again we are approaching. So till now, it's not possible to achieve the target of FRBM, but we are trying to just achieve it. So that is the reason you have to mention 2008 and 9, no issue, and then you relate to the other incidents till today. Okay, right. with annual reduction target of 0.3%, 0.3% of GDP, 0.3% of the GDP per year, of GDP per year by the central government, which is effective from fiscal year 2004-5, which is effective from fiscal year 2004-5. Clear first point? Second point, you write reduction of revenue deficits to zero level by 2008 and 9, with annual reduction target of 0.5% of the GDP per year. Clear? So what is the implication? So implication already I discussed with you, and just on the basis of the normal understanding, you are knowing that already I discussed. Like this, if fiscal deficit 3%, RD is 0 means, if you make RD 0 and fiscal deficit 3%, so it represents what? A deficit only due to the capital expenditure. But that is the maximum 3%, which is good for the country, because you are incurring deficit, but it is also deficit in the deficit itself, it is in the limit, and the deficit is due to the capital expenditure. Clear? So here when you are talking about the capital expenditure, mostly you take the asset creation and capital formations. Mostly you take in that way. Okay, next you write, there must be a cap. Cap means limit. CAP, cap means limit. Yeah, cap means limit. Cap means limit. Right. There must be a cap on the level of total liabilities of the government. Okay. Why you are putting why this provision is there? See, there must be a cap or limit. Yeah, limit must be. But since this main two provisions we have to achieve, later we keeps adding on. But it is there the part of FRBM Act. Simple, you understand about one thing. Forget about this. Take your example. Suppose you are staying in the hostel. You are staying in some area that is far from the home, and you are getting some amount once in a month. So no one is staying where you can ask the money. So amount you are receiving for that particular month, you are trying to manage your 1 month expenditure, because you are knowing that I can get the money, but only in the next month for next year, next month only. For next month, this month we have to arrange from this money only. So what you are doing, so many expenditures, either you are postponing or managing, anyhow you are managing it. So you are able to manage it because limit is fixed. But when you stay at home, when Papa ATM, Mama ATM, brother ATM, sister ATM, all are working, So there is no limit on your expenditures. Morning you are getting from your father and just spending in the evening. Again tomorrow morning you are going and asking, Papa, please give me. But after all, he is a father, he will give you. Okay, if you suppose sometimes we fail that ATM, then we are going to the mama, please, I need it. So you understand it because limit is not there. Okay, but if the limit you are trying to manage it, similarly, if you think about, you heard about shutdown condition in the US. USA faced shutdown condition in Obama administration also. Okay, Obama administration also faced the shutdown condition, but not happened. But in Trump government, it's happened. It's happened symbolically for 1-2 days, but it's happened in the Trump administrations. Shutdown conditions for in a country is a situation when government closing some of the department due to lack of fund. If government has lack of fund, government is in lack of fund and they shut down some of the department. Firstly, they send their staff other things on the leave like this. Okay, shut down the department for few, maybe any 1 day, 2 days, 1 year like this. Then we can say it's a shutdown condition. So Obama time, what's happened? Obama government implemented the healthcare services, and which is normally known in this Obamacare. Okay, so huge amount of money they spent, and for that the government borrowed huge amount from the market. So government borrowed it, and they keeps borrowing. Borrowed it, and they reached the maximum limit what the Senate already decided. This is the maximum limit you can borrow. So Obama again requested to the Senate, please allow me to borrow more, otherwise we can't run our government. So in the last hour, till the last hour, they were refusing, but finally Senate given permissions, and Obama able to borrow money and continue their administrations. But if you think about the Trump government, they started making a wall and other unnecessary expenditure as per the Senate one. They done it. And they reached the same condition, they reached at the maximum amount what the permitted by the Senate one. They already borrowed. They wanted to request already to allow me to borrow more, but they refused initially. And not initially, they keeps refusing. Finally, the Trump administration closed for a day few departments they closed. So that is, and next day they also allowed it. Yes, you can go and borrow it. Symbolically they allowed, but that is a very bad thing for any government. You assume that the country like USA is going for shutdown, so what will happen to the whole world? Okay, so it is there. So what I'm trying to say from this point, if you take the example in the countries, that there should be a limit, maximum cap on the government of the borrowing limit. Okay, so maybe in the future they are going to implement this plan, but till now depending on the country. But yes, it's true that the government is in very worst condition. They are going for the higher fiscal deficit, but normally they are trying to manage it. It is, yeah, if you see the last few years, okay, they are doing that. Now next point, right? This act prohibited the government to borrow from the RBI. This act prohibited the government to borrow from the RBI from 1st April 2006 since 1st April 2006 that is RBI cannot print new money for lending to the government okay, full stop. And please write for long term, please write in the bracket long term, because short term it is still allowed. Short term it is also allowed. Okay, so short term it is just you write for long term. Long term it's not allowed, but in short term governments can manage it. Okay, full stop, right? But even for long term it is allowed. Okay, but in a special case, When say country is facing the war or national security problem or natural calamities, then government can borrow from the RBI. Write one more line. But borrowings from the RBI is permitted. But borrowings from the RBI is permitted in exceptional situations. In exceptional situations like natural calamities. Exceptional situations like natural calamities. Okay, like natural calamities. Clear? Now, write next point. It means what you're getting for long term now it's not allowed in normal case. But even the condition is like the country is facing the national war or natural calamities, national security threat. So in that case, they can borrow from the RBI. But short term, yes, government can do that. Next point you write. On a quarterly basis, oh no, okay, yeah, first you write this point. First you write this point, then I will write. Annually present, next point you write, annually present, the annually present the following statement, just write like this. Annually present the following statements. Annually present the following statements. First you write within the same point. First you write macroeconomic framework statement. Macroeconomic framework statement. First statement, macroeconomic framework statement. Second statement, medium term fiscal policy. Medium term fiscal policy statement. Medium term fiscal policy statement. And third one, write fiscal policy strategy statement. Fiscal policy strategy statement. Clear? So what you are saying, the government has to present, and when the government is presenting these statements at the time of presenting the budget. Achha, first you complete this point. Change the para in within the same point. Change the para, write only one line. Yeah, right. These three statements provide the macroeconomic background and assessment relating to the achievement of FRBM goals. Relating to the achievement of FRBM goals. Relating to the achievement of FRBM goals. Okay, just think. Just think. Clear? What you are getting from these points? You are knowing that the economic survey normally comes before presentation of budget. So economic survey, suppose it is going to come in the last of this month, and 1st Feb the government is going to present the budget. There is one convention that why economic survey is coming before the presentation of budget, because budget means what? Budget, yesterday I discussed you have to take permission from the parliament, and if parliament is going to approve giving you permission, it means you are allowed to borrow money from Consolidated Fund of India. You are allowed. So when you are going to allow from Consolidated Fund of India, you have to take the only allowed because if parliament is going to give you approval. So when you're presenting the budget, you have to get approval from the parliament. So on different heads, you are going to spend money for that. So you have to convince the parliament, yes, amount I am spending in the different sectors, it is the requirement of the economy. randomly, and any amount you can't ask to the parliament. So what should be your reference to say the economy needs it, that sector needs it? So the assessment is there in the economic survey. Economic survey will tell you about all the issues prevailing in each and every sectors of the Indian economy. So it is a documentary evidence where you can say that this is the conditions prevailing in the country and that need a particular schemes and programs, and to solve and to implement this much of fund I needed. So it is a means through which you can convince to your parliament, and you can approve according to the conditions, you can get approval from the parliament to withdraw money from the Conservative Fund of India and spend it. So you have to take permissions. So, but FRBM Act says that, you have to give a statement. Your statement is there. You have to say what is the macroeconomic conditions prevailing in the country. There is a first statement you're talking about, the macroeconomic framework statement, where you have to say, okay, these are the conditions prevailing in the country. That is the first statement you made. Second statement, you are saying that, yes, the trend of fiscal policy, medium-term fiscal, medium means basically on an average 3 years. So to this year, and what is going to be trend of the fiscal policy in the coming year? Because this year you are going to implement, it's not going to end in the next year. So you have to say about your fiscal policy. Okay, yes, what is my fiscal policy? What will be the trend of expenditure and the receipt? So you have to say that fiscal policy. And the strategy, what strategy you are going to implement? Strategy, what strategy you are going to implement in the country so that you can achieve the FRBM goals. So in these three statements, you have to give three things. And once the statement is approved and the whole budget passed, it means what you promise you made, on the basis of your promise, Parliament approved it. And what's happened the next point? Next point, there is a reporting system is there. The government has to report to the Parliament. Okay, there is so many committees are there. So you have to report to the Parliament, yeah, this is the trend of expenditure, this is the trend of receipts. And you have to say your trend, what is the trend? And that trend must be in the parity of the statement you made at the time of presentation of budget. In the parity of that, it must be. If you are deviating from there, then Parliament noticed it, and it may be the matter of discussions. Okay, and you are getting sometimes in the media, yes, government has already achieved 80% of the fiscal deficit target. 4 months, 6 months is still left. From where you are getting information, government already spent this much of money, already just achieved this much, that's 80%, 90% of the target already achieved, the government has achieved. Because all the trend, the government has to inform to the Parliament. And not only government has to inform, CAG is also authorized to give information to the Parliament. And CAG, they are recording all the expenditure receipts of the government. So CAG has to give the report to the Parliament. On the basis of that, the Parliament will ask you. You have to give it. That is the reason several times we say there must be strong oppositions. Because if opposition is strong, then only all the things are going to work in very smoothly. If the opposition, there is no oppositions, or opposition has no money, a power in the Parliament, just few percent, then what the ruling government is doing, who is going to listen? There are the provisions are there, but whether it's going to implement it or not, depending on the given structure. But provision is there, you have to report, CAG have to give information, and then the parity is there or not. So you have to say, you have to report these things. And suppose in the first quarter you miss the report, you miss the target, then again pressure is going to mount on you from the Parliament side, from the external, the media and the public, and then finally you are trying to achieve your target. So this system is created like this. Okay, so that is one of the reason we are saying that FRBM Act is not the only act of the target, but the process of the fiscal operation has totally changed, brought the transparency. Here you have to say everything. Earlier it was not anywhere. You was not accountable basically. Now the accountability fixed. You have to say, yes, why this trend, how the gap is going on. So you have to say everything. And if target is there, and you are deviating it, Suppose target is you made the 5%, or you are deviating from that. So the finance minister has to say in the parliament, in the both the houses, why we deviated from the target. You have to give reasons and also steps taken by you to bring back at the same level. That you have to say in the parliament. So yes, the transparency is there, reporting system, other responsibilities there. So we can say they brought the transparency and made the government accountable towards public fund. Just right here. Think. On a quarterly basis, government has to report both the houses, of the parliament, an assessment of trends. Trends means what is a trend? Assessment of trends. Assessment of trends in expenditure of the government, and receipts of the government. Okay, fine, connected. And last point you write. Under exceptional circumstances, government may be compelled. Yeah, just you write like this. Under exceptional circumstances, government may deviate from the target, full stop. But in the case of deviations, comma, the government has to inform to the parliament. Government's ruling government. The government has to inform to the parliament. And who is coming? Basically the finance minister. Government has to inform to the parliament the reasons of deviations, and measures taken to correct it. Clear, dear? Yeah, in exceptional case, they can do that. Clear. Just read all the points, and if you are getting any problems, then please tell me, and just give me 1 minute, sir. Sorry dear. So any question you sent dear, or everything is fine? Let me check. Yeah. Okay. Okay, no questions, fine. Right. Then summarize and write it again, please. After this point, summarize all the points in a few lines. Right. FRBM Act provides a legal institutional framework, legal institutional framework, legal institutional framework for fiscal consolidation, okay, full stop, right? It is now mandatory for the central government. It is now mandatory for the central government to take measures to reduce fiscal deficit, full stop, right? This act binds BINDS. This act binds not only the present government, but also the future governments, to implement the fiscal consolidation policy. Clear to all? Okay, right. The government can move away from the path of fiscal consolidation, only in case of national security, war, natural calamities, etc. No, just natural calamities and other exceptional grounds which central government may specify. Finally, is given to central government, you may specify. Clear, full stop, right? Specify, right? The act prohibited the government from borrowing money from the RBI. Again, you remember, not for long term. This is for the long term. You are not allowed. Short term, still it is allowed. Clear? Okay. This act prohibited borrowing money from the RBI. This act prohibited the government, you can write, prohibited the government from borrowing money from the RBI for long term. You can write here for long term. And making monetary policy independent of fiscal policy, and also prevented monetization of deficit, deficits. Okay, full stop, write it. One more line. This act created this act, or provides, you can write, this act provides reporting, this act provides reporting, this act provides reporting to the government, reporting of the government, ऐसे कर लो, reporting of the government to the parliament, and also gives three statements, okay, three statements at the time of presenting budgets. Okay, full stop. Just so we summarized it. FRBM is what? A legal framework you have created where the government has to do all the things. You understand this? It's very major changes, you know. Requesting to the government to do some things, it's very, very, very difficult task, you know, because you understand you are making a law. When a government is making a law for himself or itself, that is one of the challenge, you know. And at least it's good at that time the policy makers, they decided good things for the economy and they implemented it. So these are the changes made in the fiscal operations, and if honestly they are working there really. And why the government is saying that, oh, my target is this, I'm going to achieve this. So you make them accountable, and transparency, you brought it. Where they are expanding, what is the trend of expenditure and receipts, so you have to see everything. So in this way we have to do. So few things we mentioned here and that we have to know. One, how the monetary policy is independent, it become the independent of the fiscal policy. Number one. Second is the monetization of deficit. These two words we have used here. Okay, and that's we have to know the meaning of this. Okay, so okay, no, what is trends means, Subham, you asked, what is trend? Trends means like I promised you, suppose I am presenting budget today. So I have to say, okay, this will be my trend of expenditure. Here trends means we are talking about the expenditure trend. We are talking about the receipts trend. Okay, this will be my expenditure trend, this will be my receipt trend, and the gap is going to be like this. But suppose you promise something, but you are not following this. So this gap of expenditure in the receipt trend is going to be much wider. So if already you achieved wider, then what the parliament can do if already it's happened? So why reporting system is there? Okay, suppose in one quarter you are not able to maintain your promise what you made at the time of presenting the budget. Pressure is mounting, and the second quarter you are going to maintain at least that much. So if this framework is there, so it's trying to, I mean, maybe pressure you can see, maybe due to the other reasons, you are able to maintain, okay, same level of the gap or deficit what you promised to the parliament. Yeah, if any other exceptional conditions happen, like the pandemic, it's happened. But if you're saying to the parliament, yes, due to the pandemic, I am not able to achieve the targets, now deficit much more, who's going to protest you, dear? Everyone knowing that it's happened in the country. Everyone knowing in this one. But nothing happened, but your deficit is much more, you spend the money for the populist measure, other measure that you're not promised to the parliament, is not informed to the parliament. Your expenditure is much more in the compared to receipts, and finally you landed up to the higher fiscal deficit. That thing should not be there. For that things, the reporting system is there. And you have to say the trends, and accordingly you have to maintain this. Just go back to the before this amendment, implementation of FRBM Act. Suppose government promised you, okay, fine, I will just target is my 3%. But when government is coming after this, next year they are coming and informing you, generally, normally. So that time if something happened, the higher fiscal deficit, what you can do, you have to bound to accept. So at least this reporting system is trying to create the transparency and making the government more accountable towards the public fund. Clear? So in this way you have to take and connect it. Fine. So we used one word, let me discuss first. One is the monetization. Monetization of deficit. So you can say this word, use this word monetization of deficit, or you can also the same thing, same process, you can also say deficit financing. Okay, if one word, more word you can write. You can same thing, write monetized deficit, or you can use the word deficit financing. Deficit financing. Yes, these all are the same. Different words, meaning is same. Okay. You can say deficit financing, or a special term. A special term is coined. A special term is coined, deficit financing. Deficit financing, you can say monetized deficit, you can say, or monetization of deficit, you can say. Simple meaning. Say it is a government, it's the economy. First you assume it's economy. Here is the government. Here is the RBI. If suppose government is borrowing from the RBI and funding the deficit, what is ultimate? Ultimate thing is going to happen, increase in money supply. Just check. Go back to the monetary system, what I discussed with you. Remember that flow chart? We kept RBI above in the economy, and that day I discussed if any money or any liquidity, it comes from the RBI to economy, there will be increase in money supply. If money goes from economy to RBI, if money goes from economy to RBI, then it represents decrease in, or there will be decrease in money supply. Simple in argument, simple the relationship. Here see, what is happening? Government is facing higher fiscal deficit. Government is borrowed from the RBI. RBI printed new currency, and in this case, RBI is printing new currency, and they fund it to the government. And ultimate in the economy, what will happen? Money supply is going up, because in the economy we also consider the government, because government taking the money, the government is finally going to spend in the economy. So ultimate there is increase in money supply in the country. So just write, and it is known as a deficit financing. A special word is coined. Why it is known as a monetized deficit or monetization of deficit? Because this deficit, due to this deficit, the overall money supply has increased, because this deficit you funded through this way, so the money supply has increased in the economy. Clear? Just write a few lines. You can write deficit financing, monetized deficit, or monetization of deficit. Okay, right. If government, you can name it Government of India. If the Government of India facing higher fiscal deficit, and funding this deficit through borrowings, and funding this deficit through borrowings money from the RBI, and RBI prints new currency, to fund the government deficit, and RBI prints new currency to fund the government deficits. Then then money supply, oblique liquidity, then money supply oblique liquidity will go up in the economy, full stop. It is known as deficit financing, oblique monetized deficit, oblique monetization of deficit, okay, full stop. One word if you want to write, then you can write funding of this way, you can write funding of deficit in this way leads to increase in money supply, so it is known as you can name it deficit financing oblique monetized deficit. So it is known as deficit financing or monetized deficit. You can write it here. Clear? Now, since we are discussing this, so one more definition we have to add it. So let me add one more definition. Budgetary deficit. Which you can write BD, budgetary deficits. Clear? So as I discussed with you, in very starting, the government was using the concept of budgetary deficit, but in 1997, we shifted from budgetary deficit to fiscal deficit. In 1997. Clear? Fiscal deficit we already discussed with you. Now what is budgetary deficit and how it is different from fiscal deficit? It's asked in the PT paper. Which deficit is more appropriate, or which deficit is representing the actual deficit of the government? They can give you two options: budgetary deficits, revenue deficits, overall deficit they're representing, primary deficit, this all. So if it is the option, then it's a fiscal deficit is one of the best alternative. Why? Because just you see, in budgetary deficits, what you're taking the total expenditure of the government, which includes your capital expenditure plus revenue expenditure, no doubt, minus you are taking total receipt. Here there is a difference. Total receipts, including, here these things you have to observe, including borrowings from the RBI and borrowing from the RBI, excluding other borrowings. Yeah, other borrowings. Yes, these definitions you have to understand. Check and compare the concept of budgetary deficit and fiscal deficits. If you are able to compare, if you are getting it, then it's better. Please check dear. budgetary deficits and fiscal deficit. So in budgetary deficit, what you're getting? We have taken already total expenditure of the government, which includes your capital expenditure, per every expenditure. So if you compare with the fiscal deficit and budgetary deficits, so there is no difference in expenditure side. Fine, there is no difference. But yes, there is a difference in the receipt side. So here you are taking total receipts of the government. You are taking total receipts of the government. Okay, you are taking total receipts of the government. But what is the difference? Here you are including borrowings from the RBI. So how much you borrowed from the RBI, that part you already included. That part you already included. Check. How much you borrowed from the RBI, it is included. See, here you are including borrowings from the RBI. And other than the borrowings from RBI, all other borrowings, you only excluding this. You are only excluding this. Just check. No dear, you take in different way. This definition we were using earlier. These definitions we were using earlier. Before FRBM Act. FRBM Act you implemented in 2004. But even before FRBM Act, you already changed the concept of deficit financing. I mean, concept of the deficit of the government. Earlier, starting one, the whatever amount you was borrowing, I mean, government was borrowing from the RBI, this all amount considered as a part of receipt. That is the meaning of that. You consider the part of receipts, and so you are not excluding to calculate the deficit amount. But other than RBI borrowings, all other consider, yes, it is the borrowing. Then debate started. When it started? After economic reform. When you reform the economy, when the open, it's a market mechanism, started, you are implementing. Debate started, reforms, the two committees you constituted during that period, M. Narasimhan Committee 1, M. Narasimhan Committee 2. Okay, and after that, debate is started basically. So many experts started giving it. Borrowing is borrowing. You are borrowing from RBI or you are borrowing from the other sources, but these are the borrowings. Okay, so you have to exclude all borrowings when you are going to decide or you are going to calculate the deficits. When you are going to decide, going for the deficits, calculation of deficit. Then in 1997, government changed the definitions. Because even you are borrowing from RBI, it is borrowing for the government. You have to subtract while you are getting the actual amount of deficit. If you are taking the borrowings from RBI as the part of receipts, you are not going to calculate the actual amount of deficit. So in 1997, the government accepted the fiscal deficit, and in fiscal deficit, all borrowings you are excluding while you are going to calculate the fiscal deficit. So the fiscal deficit gap is now it's more, and it's going to give you the actual measure. Yes, this much amount you are in deficit, and that's the reason if you compare between the budgetary deficit and fiscal deficit, then fiscal deficit is going to give you actual and accurate measure of the deficit. This check. So you please define, write few 1-2 lines about budgetary deficit. See, already in the equation is there, but put in language. Budgetary deficit is the difference between total expenditure of the government Same thing you are going to write in the language. It is a difference between total expenditure of the government and total receipts of the government, including borrowings from the RBI, but excluded borrowings from other sources, full stop. Please write. Budgetary deficit concept was replaced in 1997 by fiscal deficit concept. Okay, full stop, right? Fiscal deficit measures actual deficit overall actual deficit of the government in a given fiscal year. Okay, full stop, right? Since borrowings from RBI, is not included in receipts of the government in fiscal deficit measure, is not included in receipts of the government in fiscal deficit measures, comma, so the fiscal deficit is better measures of deficit. Fiscal deficit is the better measure of deficit. Overall we are talking about, clear? Clear, dear? Fine. Few questions I received from your side. What is other borrowings? Market borrowings? Still we have to say after all the things, dear. Market borrowings. There is two these. One is the borrowing from the RBI and second is the market borrowings. Okay. You are saying what is fiscal consolidation? Yes, dear. Fiscal consolidation, this word we are using like fiscal consolidation or fiscal consolidation policy. So fiscal consolidation means when government decreasing their expenditure, but remember, government never use the word decrease. What the government is using the word? Government using the word rationalizing the expenditure. So you use this word also. When government rationalizing the expenditure and augmenting the receipts, augmenting means increase in receipts, so that leads to decrease in your deficit, and it is also known as fiscal consolidation or fiscal consolidation policy. It is a policy of the government is what? To achieve the fiscal consolidations. This is the aim. So in this way you can use. Simple fiscal consolidation means when government rationalizing the expenditure and augmenting the receipts. Clear, dear? Now second, so in this context we see deficit financing a reverse process of FRBM Act. Then why we need deficit financing or useful for economy? See, dear, deficit financing, if you are talking about really to me, then we are knowing, we are discussing that, and we are also comparing with that. If you take the Indian economy, if you take the 70s, 80s, particularly 80s we are talking about, 1980s. 80s is the good decade that Indian economy faced in the economy because we faced good development in the agriculture sector and other part of the country. We also achieved the higher economic growth rate. Okay, so growth rate was also good. The whole 80s is really very performed. But deficit was also higher. Okay. So you compare nowadays कि in 1991 our economy was not as much as open what you can see today. Okay, today in this globalized world, higher fiscal deficit can destabilize your country. Like what's happened in the Greece economy, what is happening to the right now the Sri Lankan economy. You just take the example. So in globalized world, when your economy is open, integrated with the other country of the world, okay, so adverse impact of higher deficit financing is much more, okay, in compared to the controlled economy, what we had earlier. So if you go and see the history of the Indian development, Indian economic development, so a significant part of your growth and development we managed by deficit financing. It is also true. By deficit financing, it is also true. If you go and see the other books, the very earlier books and earlier discussions, if you go and just see the article and discussions, meet with the concerned persons, you are getting that earlier. Deficit financing, even it was considered one of the factors, one of the engine of the growth. It was one of the reason of growth earlier. Simple reason it was the adverse impacts what you can see today, okay, that was minimized under the earlier framework. Just you can see here, and why it was considered that, you just see. See this flow chart. Inflation happened in domestic economy. Hardly in 1991, earlier you go, before that, when there was a universal PDS system, hardly the normal and common people aware about the inflations. Because all are covered under the ration shops, so most of them getting the enough amount of food grains to meet their demand. So essential product is not problem. Kerosene oil, it was controlled price. Okay, petrol and diesel, it was at the control price. Government was regulating. Okay, even the fare of the transport, it was totally controlled. You can't increase 5 paise before the permission of the government. They are fixing. RTO was fixing the rate. And movement of the public was very restricted. The people did not prefer to like this today, what is happening in this globalized world. So school was under the government sector. Hospital was under the government sector. So even inflation was there. So impact on the common people was very least. Okay, think about the external sector. Till your open economy, that is, I mean, open economy is earlier, but after the LPG model, there is no control on exports, there is no control on imports. Okay, but earlier it was restricted, so you are able to control your imports. You are able to control your current account, BOP, everything was under control. Even your exchange rate was under control. The RBI was deciding what should be the exchange rate. So one thing you have to understand here, where a particular policy is good or bad is totally depending on the conditions prevailing in the economy. We can't say that earlier the 20 years, 3 years decade back, if something is good, so it is good also. No, the economic condition has totally changed today. So we have to interpret, we have to see according to the current conditions. So in this current condition, this globalized world, the punishment for higher fiscal deficit is much larger. And one of the best thing, you just go and read any one article which is online, it is there related to the Sri Lankan crisis, Sri Lankan economy. Just read one, you will get it. They're starting from here, they ended to here. Yeah, it is one of the major impact that started this. That's we are trying to say here. Clear? So depending, but today you can consult like this. You can say like this, what is the current impact? Other borrowings here, and sir, what is the base deficit calculation method, Biswajit? As I discussed it, Biswajit. Okay, it is your fiscal deficit is one of the way. Overall deficit. RD has different importance, PD has different importance. PD due to the current policy, RD due to consumption one. So, but overall deficit is the FD. FD is better than the budgetary deficit. FD, fiscal deficit. If directly borrowing from RBI is considered as bad, then why we follow this method for a long time before the introduction of FRBM? Yeah, Partha. Just think, why government is able to borrow today from the market? You take in different way. You take in different way. Why today government is depending on the private capital today? Why? Because after liberalizations, LPG model, now a section of society, their level of income has increased. Now they have the money for investments. Private sectors come out, they have money for investment. So this time, since I'm not saying all section of society, I'm saying a section of society, they're having the money, they can invest, they can fund. So now we have options today, the government can borrow from the market. If you're talking about before 1991, the structure in the whole area, you can count in hands the people are the rich in category. Frankly, just go in the very practical. You can count in the hands, and they are so reserved, spending a single rupee, it was very difficult for them because difference concept was there. Okay, and they all are engaged in some other activities. They are earning the money, but other activities. So options you need it. Options you need it. You have option or not. So that way you have to think about it. Today the government has options. They can borrow from RBI and they can borrow from the market also. There was also, but there was limitations because mostly the securities were purchased by the banks and only the the public sector banks. PSU was there. So understand the option. Government was going, but very little amount they were able to generate it because economy other than market has potential to land it. To what extent you are only depending on the banks? Already the 38% around 38% you put it 38% what under the SLR the bank has to keep that time in 981 I'm telling you. So structure you have to you can just connect in this way whether it's an option or not. We're talking about the normal public. Okay. Why we remove borrowings from others? It's also no. We not remove the borrowings from others. No, please don't take in the other way. And what I'm trying to say, and your question is coming just opposite of that. It's not good things there. What I'm saying, in the even budgetary deficit, we included borrowings from RBI, but excluded the other borrowings. Means when you're going to count the fiscal deficit, budgetary deficit, even that time you are not taking only others borrowing, but borrowings from RBI was including. But in fiscal deficit, you are excluding all the borrowings to calculate the deficits. You are excluding all the borrowings now. Okay, fine. So we are able to connect this. Over there? Fine. Now next point, you understand this. We are going to just second point we have written there, monetary policy is independent of fiscal policy. So monetary policy and the fiscal policy here, there is an interlink. First of all, I am accepting one word, monetary policy and fiscal policy has to work together. If both are working together, then only it is possible to achieve a particular target. Then only you are able to achieve higher economic growth and development. Otherwise, it is not possible. It is not possible. Both has to work together in the very coordinated manner. So you can ask me then, so why you have written this line? Monetary policy. Yes, FRBM in one sense only. One sense we can say, now monetary policy become independent. So independency means monetary policy will take decision as per the requirement of the economy, and fiscal authority or fiscal policy will take decision as per the requirement of the economy. So coordination not should be directly one, coordination should be as per the requirement of the economy. In this way, both the authority has to work. Okay, so to understand this, the coordination others, we are going to add some information. That information basically I framed all the syllabus and the class teaching in such a way that there's a, as per our requirement we are including. So they are giving two ideas. One, the concept of a particular topic, and plus the uses of this concept. So here we are going to discuss about demand for money, because in the monetary policy we have discussed supply side, yes, okay, but here in the demand for money we are going to discuss about the demand side, how we are demanding, why we are demanding money in the economy. Because you understand, if you don't know the demand side, then how the RBI can decision about the supply. Because first of all, RBI has to assess what is the overall demand of money in their country. Then accordingly they can decide the total liquidity or availability of liquidity in the economy. So here I am just diverting from here, and I am connecting it with the demand for money. Then we can connect it. So here let us discuss about demand for money. And please you ask why you demand money. Demand for money. So in this way we keeps going on the covering the all the topics, okay, and also we are able to link it with a particular reference, and also can use in the other concept where you need it. So ask yourself why you are demanding money, why you demand money. So basically in economics, and it's true that it's already empirical evidence. So we demand economy in the country or in the economy only for three motives. And on the basis of three motives, one is known as transaction, demand for money, transactions, demand for money. Next you can say is speculative, demand for money. Okay, and one more motive is, which is known as, on the basis of this, precautionary demand for money. Yeah. So if you see the whole economy, so money we demand for three purpose and three motives. These are this. Clear? So we can go for break for 1 hour. We are meeting around 2 o'clock, dear. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.